Welcome to this episode of Feeding the Wolf Possibilities. Today, we're meeting up with Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, a worldwide modality that empowers people to help themselves. Access is based on the idea that you are not wrong. You know what is true for you, and that consciousness can shift anything. Today, we're exploring what came before Access. What journey through life led Gary to develop these tools and techniques? Welcome, Gary. And I recently learned that you started Access Consciousness when you were 56 years old.
55. But
55.
Yeah.
And that means you lived a lot before that.
I did a lot. I lived a lot. I had a full life. I had a full life by the time I was 35. Okay. And that I got married when I was 36 the first time. And I had children and I did all that kind of stuff. And I did divorce and I did cults and I did, I did and I did and I did and I did and I did.
And that's what we're going to dive into.
Okay.
So when you were growing up, when did you first know you were different?
When people used to ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up?
And you said?
I want to be happy. And they go, no, son, what do you want to be when you grow up? Happy? No, do you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief? Yeah, as long as I'm happy. I knew I did not have a normal person's point of view.
What did you do? What did you do with that?
I started looking for happiness. It's like I knew I wanted happiness and I kept looking for happiness. I wondered where happiness existed on planet Earth and I didn't find it very easily.
So even as a kid, you were looking for happiness?
Yes. I went to church at 10. I took my little sister by the hand, who was 6, and she and I would walk to church every morning. And I would watch the people in church glad hand and tell each other how much they loved each other in church. And then on Monday, I would watch them screw one another.
Yeah.
I went, this is not happiness, and this is not truth. What the fuck are these people doing? I was 10. That's when I knew that I was not normal. The funny part about it is I had a professor in college. She says, oh, I remember you. I said, what? She said, I remember you from church. I said, really? She said, yes. You were a very serious young man. And she said, you were always looking for something. And I never knew what it was you were looking for. Did you find it? Not yet, but I'm still looking.
You sometimes say you grew up with Cleaver Beaver family.
Beaver the Cleaver, yes.
Yes. And in Access, one of the perspectives is that we pick our parents. So why do you think you picked yours?
Because they couldn't really control me and they couldn't stop me. I think that's why all people choose the parents that they chose, is because their parents can't stop them.
What did it give you to have normal parents?
Well, what it gave me to have the most normal, down-to-earth parents. My father wanted me to be a sports person, and I wasn't that sporty. So his point of view was I was just weird. It's like he didn't understand why I wanted to play piano. He didn't understand why I wanted to do art. He didn't understand why I didn't want to go to, the double feature Cowboy movies instead of going to, the Old Globe Theater and listening to Shakespeare. He couldn't understand Shakespeare. I could. I knew I was different.
So you are one of the least judgmental people I've ever met. Do you have the sense that you've always been like that?
I don't think I was. I don't know. I don't know whether I was born without judgment. I was born with curiosity and a need to question. And so I always questioned everything. I mean, I did wonderful things like almost burned my house down from playing with matches and gasoline and shit. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I was a normal kid.
What was school like?
I always had the answer, but I would always make somebody who needed to have the answer that I didn't have, so that they could win, as they felt the need to be acknowledged. I didn't. I never felt the need to be acknowledged. I didn't understand that until I got to be an old man.
How did you give them the answer?
I would just say part of it, enough for them to clue into what they already knew, and then they would say the rest of it. And I never said the rest of it, even though I knew the rest of it. I was always interested in the whole of everybody having a better sense of themselves. I was also the kid who always hung out with the fat girl and the strange dude and the people who played in the sandbox.
It was something I wanted to ask about when you went to school. You often tell this story how you had two friends who kind of shut you out.
No, I had two friends that, I would always introduce my friends to one another. Well, I was in high school, and these two friends that I introduced became best friends. And then they dissed me and they cut me out, and they said they didn't want anything to do with me because I was too weird. I had always included everyone. But when I saw that people weren't included, those people that weren't included, I would include in my group, regardless of whether anybody else would include them or not.
What does that create?
Creates a place where I know that, no matter what you think is weird about somebody or strange, it's like you begin to see what isn't strange about them, and you begin to see what made them the strange people they are. And you begin to know that, it's like just because they're strange doesn't mean they're wrong. They're just different. Different is not a wrongness. Difference is a difference.
So you were actually a young man then in the 60s.
Yes.
So what was that like?
I was above it all.
How do you mean?
I didn't listen to the Beatles. I listened to classic music. I was not going to be involved with the Beatles and those Elvis Presley and those people, because they were the lower class. I was trying to be an upper class dude.
What was that like?
Kind of stupid. It's like all I did was alienate myself from a whole lot of people. And it's like, but I also had spent so much time with the alienated that I knew somehow I was more like them than not.
You often talk about this trip to Europe. What was it that created? Like, what was the gift of going somewhere so far away?
Well, I wanted to be out. I wanted to try and find out what the world was like outside of the US of A. It was funny because years later, I tried to give my mother a ticket to go to Europe. And she said, "Why would I ever go to Europe? There's so much I haven't yet seen in the United States." I went, because everything in the United States is 2,000 years less old than all the stuff in Europe. Oh, but that's not of interest. Okay, fine.
So what happened in Europe when you?
Well, I was on the plane going over there, and this lady that was sitting next to me talked to me, and she convinced me that I could help her out a lot if I would pretend to be her fiance. She said, "I'll give you a place to stay for free, and you'll be able to stay with me, and you'll get free food." And so I went there and I pretended to be her fiance, and I met her entire family, and they didn't try to fix her up while she was there. Then I began to realize as I was with her longer that she was just nutty as a fruitcake. And she was the fruitcake of the family. And, after she left, her family all took me in, and they were going to give me places to stay and take care of me and do stuff for me. I said, "Look, I have to tell you the truth. I'm really not her fiance." She said, "Oh, we all knew that. You were too nice a guy to be her fiance." What?
Which country is it?
Holland. So I was in Holland, in the Netherlands, and I picked apples, and and they paid me for it, and I did all kinds of, stuff. That was great. And I watched soccer because the one, here, John, brother-in-law, was into soccer. And so, so I watched it, and I didn't understand what was going on. So I'd ask him. So he told me about soccer. Now, what that did is that prepared me for being a coach of soccer in my old age, after I had kids, because when my kid was 8, he wanted to be on a soccer team. So I got him on the soccer team, and they said to me, "We need an assistant coach because we got to have an assistant coach and a coach for each of these teams. And the coach, we have to have an assistant. Would you do that?" And I go, "I don't know anything about soccer." "I'm sorry, you don't have to know anything. The coach knows it all." I said, "Yes." And then he quit. He left his son behind. Luckily, his son was one of the better soccer players. And my son was more aggressive than anybody else, so he was a good soccer player. So we had the two best ones were in there. And then we had the odd squad. I would look up and the three, guys at the back of the thing, I can't even remember what their field names are, but they're by the goalie, and they would be lying down in the grass looking at the clouds, making images out of them. I yelled, "Get the fuck up, and the called ball is coming." What? Okay, get up, get up, get up. And I told my guys, I said, "Look, if you don't lose this game by more than 3 points, I'll take you out for ice cream," which got them off the ground a little bit, but only when they listened to me. And I began to see how all the points of view were our individual things. It wasn't the truth. It was as you perceive it. So you make it up as you go, and you decide things are things that they're not necessarily what they are.
Well, that's also one of the things you say when you went to Europe, you could invent yourself.
Yeah.
You could.
Well, I had to, because it's like I arrived there as somebody's, significant other. I left there as somebody different than that.
So when I hear you talk, like even with the football coaching and the apple picking, right?
Yeah.
So you've had so many jobs and careers in your life.
Jobs, yes.
So could you just do like a really quick list of some of the jobs you've had?
I was a meat cutter, a bartender, a waiter, a chef, an assistant manager in a restaurant, horseback instructor. I was a horse trainer. That's all I can remember. And I had about 40 more.
Several of the jobs are still relevant, but one of them is Gary the Cowboy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how did you become a cowboy?
Well, by going to the stable. It's like what had happened is when I was 2 years old, my grandfather put me up on his team of horses that he plowed fields with. He plowed the fields, the team of horses, until he was 81.
Wow.
Then his kids took his horses away and sold them.
So big plow horses.
Big plow horses. And he died 6 months later. He took his horses away. He died. He died of a broken heart because he lost his horses. And it's like, I thought that was awful. And, it's like, and I went, okay. So it's like, for a birthday, I had a choice of whether I wanted to have a birthday party or whether I wanted to go horseback riding in Balboa Park. And at that time, Balboa Park in Santa Barbara was a place where they had horses and stuff. I didn't realize that the stable that was there in Balboa Park was owned by the guy who later became my boss, and horses, and taught me more things about training horses. But he had been the guy who found the horse that was on the milk cart that became known as the horse with the flying tail. And it's a Disney movie that's very old. You can still find it. And it's like literally he found him on a milk cart in San Diego and bought him off the milk cart for $25. But my boss was always known as $50 Bradley. He would never pay $50 for any horse. No horse was ever worth more than $50 to him. So he would buy cheap horses, but then he knew how to train them to make them better. And he would do that, and he'd put me on the rankest horse. Whichever horse was rank, Gary, go ride this horse.
So this is a ranch outside Santa Barbara?
No, this was a horse farm in Chula Vista, California, which was in California. And I had started up in the mountains because I'd gone up into the mountains, and I found this place called Pine Valley Stables. And it was beautiful up there. It was a beautiful place. And so I got a job working there part-time because I wanted to work with horses.
What was it about horses? Like, how did you know this is for me?
It was just a sense with horses that I didn't have to think, because horses were, horses are different breed, quote unquote. And it's like, literally, I've told people everything I ever learned, I learned from a horse.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like horses teach you things if you're willing to learn. And I rode every, pathetic horse, bad horse, crazy horse that was ever on a rent string, I rode. And so I rode all of these crazy horses, and it's like, and I could ride anything as a result of it.
So how many years did you work with horses?
Since I was 2.
Yeah.
It's like when I was a kid, we'd go to get horseback rides on my birthday. I would rather go riding with my sister in Balboa Park than I would anything else. So I would go riding for my birthday. I was like, I didn't care about birthday parties. I hated birthday parties because they gave me things like, PT boats where you had to glue them together and stuff. But I almost burned down our house because I took my PT boat, I filled it full of kerosene, and I threw matches at it until it exploded in flame and went up and hit the eaves of the house. Oops.
Have you always had horses?
I've had horses since I was 22.
So even through all the different stages of life, there's always been horses.
Oh, I always go back to horses no matter what. I had a horse that I bought that I was working up in Pine Valley, and I bought this horse, and the horse would kick anybody. And I stood behind him and I took his tail and I picked it, which is taking one string of hair at a time so you get the fullest tail you can get. And I wanted him to have his full tail, not run the comb through it and pull it all out. And and the woman kept looking at me and I go, what are you looking at? Nothing. And every time he picked his foot, I go, stop. I just keep picking, stop, keep picking. And I had no thing about him going to kick me. Stop, put that foot down. And and the horse never kicked me. But I learned from that with the horse, as long as you don't have a point of view that they're going to do something bad, they don't do it.
Right. Do you get the sense that you also learned about people?
I learned that most people lie, and people say they know everything about horses. They don't.
Right. It's like church, when you went to church.
When I went to church, the same lesson I learned at church. People say one thing, do another. People say one thing, do another. Same thing I learned in Europe. People say one thing, do another. This is my friend. She's a bitch. Okay, good. Yeah, it's just weird. So I don't trust people, but I do trust horses.
You once said that you prefer to know if somebody lies because then you know they're lying.
Yeah, I know they're a liar. If they lie, and I trust them implicitly.
Trust them to lie.
I trust that they will lie. Just have to wait for it to happen. It's all a different way of looking at people.
Well, we also have Gary, the antique dealer.
Yeah.
That is still around.
Yes.
Living strong. So how did you find out you had a talent for finding valuable things?
It's from those neighbors that I had when I was a kid. I would go to their houses and I see that and I go, that's beautiful. What's that? And they'd tell me and I would never remember it, but I'd always know that was a beautiful thing. And I could see what was beautiful. And it's and so many of them were saying, God, you've got great taste. God, you've got great taste. God, you've got great taste. I go, okay, wonder what that means. But later I discovered it's I can always see what has value. And I don't know why. I just can't. I'm very impressed on my youngest daughter, Grace. She was 2. She could tell the difference between Chinese porcelain and Japanese porcelain. I couldn't. She still does. I think it came as her because I think she came to me because I wouldn't stop her from having those talents or abilities.
Your house is really like the house of a Highlander. It's timeless. It has things from all over the world, anytime. Anytime,
any place. I like beautiful things.
Well, is it your dream house? Did you know you wanted a house like that?
I knew I wanted a house that had eclectic taste because I had been in Santa Barbara and I'd been an upholsterer. And so I went into lots of really beautiful mansions and they had strings across furniture you couldn't sit in. Don't sit. They had museum pieces in their houses. And I went, if I'm going to have a house, I'm going to be able to sit in friggin' everything. So in my house, you can sit in anything. It's I've got some chairs that are from the 1400s. There's no tag on them, don't sit. People can sit in them. I don't care.
What does it contribute to you? When you walk around in the house?
Well, it's the thing is, what I get out of it is I'm always impressed at the beauty that has been made over the centuries. I mean, mankind has amazing talents and does these amazingly beautiful things. We used to go to the Museum of Art in New York City. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, wonderful.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And it's I looked at that and I went, oh God, I'd love to have things like that in my life. And they go, you can't buy those. I went, okay, fine. But I went out and I bought the best I could, close to that. I've got one picture that was appraised at $140,000 because it was done by this famous guy who did it in the 1920s of Arabs with their camels praying.
Oh.
And it's like, I think it's wonderful. I love it. I sent it to the auction to see if they could sell it. They didn't sell it, but I didn't care.
You get to keep it.
Yeah. And it didn't want to leave me.
Yes.
It doesn't want to leave me. And the one thing I learned is I can buy things. And if they want to leave me, they will find who they want to own them. And that person will come and say, oh, God, I've got to have that. How much is it?
So do things find you?
Yes. Always.
One of the things that I also heard you talk about is when you got divorced and you have very little money, you live in this little apartment, but you still use the nice china, like, and you would
what I had is my wife gave me the crappy china that we had because she didn't want it anymore. And she was going to go out and buy new stuff, but she did. And she gave me the crappy china and she gave me the crappy flatware. And it's like, and I went, I don't really care about this stuff. And I had a set of sterling flatware that I bought from my first wife when she ran out of money because she always ran out of money, and it's like, and so I went, I'm going to use this every day. So I put it in the everyday drawer. And I had this china that I had bought at different times that I had started out with 6 plates from my great aunt. She'd given me these 6 plates, a tea pot and cream and sugar, and the sugar bowl had gotten broken. But I had the rest of it. So it's like I went, okay, I like this china. So I bought that china over 10 years. My ex-wife said, I don't like this china. You can take it with you. So I had service for 20. I went, okay, I'm in this little tiny apartment. And I went, okay, so what am I going to do? How am I going to have 24 people for dinner at this house? I'm not. Never mind. I'm putting this in the thing and using it.
Well, when you choose to use like nicer silverware and china, it always reminds me of this, like there's a choice to thrive instead of just survive.
Well, that's what I looked at. I went, okay, do I want to prepare for a future in which I'll have this, or do I want to have this as my present? But you know what? I'm going to eat on these things. I'm going to use them every day. And I did. And I think I've had 3 bowls and 3 plates that have gotten broken, but that's all in 20 years.
And they're still around.
And I still use them every day.
So you have 4 children. You've had 2 wives.
Yes, I've had 2 wives. I've had 4 children. 2 of them are genetically mine. The other 2 I adopted. I didn't adopt them, but they're mine.
They choose you.
Yeah, they chose me.
So how has that, like the adventure of being a husband?
Children will always take your last breath and never say thank you. I had a 90-year-old woman who told me that about kids. And it's true. And, they just expect to get everything, and they should. That's what you do. And with my life, it's like I got married, and it's like I was a little bit silly, okay? I thought you could get whatever you asked for. So I said, I want somebody who will do this, this, and this with me. And it's like, and my first wife, all of those things were there. With my second wife, I also asked for all the things I didn't desire. And I got all of those. With my second wife, I said, I want someone who will fight life's battles with me. What I meant was alongside me. What she did is she fought all of life's battles with me. So every battle, everything we did was a battle in one form or another. And it was just not that much money.
Words matter.
Yeah. What you ask for, you shall receive.
Yeah.
Now I ask to be out of town when disasters occur. I usually am. I ask to have, beautiful things come into my life, and it happens. Who has a fucking full-sized rhino in their house?
No one.
Me.
Yes.
Except
you.
Yeah. And I also have a 12-foot alligator in my living room.
This 90-year-old woman that stayed with you for a while. Can you tell us about her and how she contributed?
She was a brilliant person. She was amazing. I mean, she had been raised by her Victorian grandmother because her mother was just a little easy. And so her grandmother was taking her in to make sure that she didn't become an easy girl. And she got married and, went to live with her new husband, and they got a sterling silver tea service for their wedding. So she put the sterling silver teapot on the stove and turned it on. It melted. And she learned that you have to treat sterling a little different. But she was always willing to tell the tales about what she had done different. I thought that was amazing. And she was just a wonderful, wonderful person, and I enjoyed her thoroughly. And when her daughter died, she had no one. She had no family left, so we took her in. And she lived with us until she had to go into hospice, and she died. But she was wonderful. She was a great lady, and she had unique ways of looking at things. She said, I learned long ago, think wildly, dress conservatively. Said, you can think as wild as you want because nobody can see that, but how you dress can make people judge you. If they judge you wrongly, then you get stuck.
She's also the one that you talked a lot about relationship with.
Yeah, because she had a relationship. She had a relationship with her husband that lasted 50 years. She used to say, my bill says this subject is no longer for discussion. And it's like, and I respected him, so I didn't discuss it. Or most women will, nag a guy to death. She wouldn't. He said, this is not for discussion. It was not for discussion.
You also mentioned that her husband, I think, was a devout Christian, while she was more spiritually.
She was a metaphysical junkie.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's funny because at the end of her life, she wanted to go back to the Catholic Church. And I said, you can't. And she said, I need to. Why? Well, I want to make sure I get into heaven. Honey, if anybody will get into heaven, you will. So don't worry about it.
You had a period where you explored Scientology.
Yes.
So how come and how did it turn out?
Well, it's like, first of all, you have to realize I went to church at 10. When I got to be 15, I started going to every church to find out if any of them told the truth or if they were all a bunch of lies. I went to every church, cult, and religion you could find. Then when I was in my 30s, I got into metaphysics and I saw that as valuable. And then I met some people from Scientology. And it's like, and they convinced me they could give me freedom. So I said, okay, let's do it. And so I studied with Scientology for a number of years. And that's where I met Mary, and it's like, and she was so wonderful. And, she's the one who said there are 5 elements of a good relationship. Honor, trust, vulnerability, gratitude, and allowance. And it's like, and if you give that to your partner and they give that to you, you have a beautiful relationship. It's true. I don't see many people who do that.
That's very true. So how did you
Well, I was doing fine in Scientology until my son was born. And then they told me, it's like, you have to put that boy with a babysitter and come to classes. I said, no. I had a child, and it's like, it's my responsibility to take care of them. You don't just leave them with babysitters and stuff. And I'd already had to leave him with babysitters when he got so old that I could no longer take him to work, because I would take him to work and I'd put him in a swing and just swing him all day long, and he was fine with that. And then when he got older and he needed to run around on the ground, that's when I got a friend of mine who was into volleyball to take him and go take him to the beach, and he did.
So you left Scientology?
I left Scientology because I saw them doing really crazy stuff when L. Ron Hubbard died. And I went, okay, this is crazy. And they would do these, thank you, Ron, for giving me my life. I went, he didn't give me my life. I gave me my life. I chose. What the fuck is this? It's like they wanted you to say that L. Ron Hubbard was the source of your life, and I wouldn't do it. But once again, I'm in a church. I'm seeing people be nice on one day and ugly on another. So it's like, no, I don't believe you.
At some point after this, you started channeling.
Yes, I started channeling when I was doing the metaphysical stuff. And it's like, and I went back to metaphysical when I got out of Scientology. And when And that's when my sister-in-law came to visit, and yeah, she was all weirded out because of a thing that we did where we had a channel there for her. And she said, I think somebody wants to channel through me. So we had a night to have that happen. And while that was happening, someone looked at me straight in the face when I was out of my body and went, I'm here for you. And I'm like, what the fuck? Go away, leave me alone. This is, Virginia's night. And so I went to see my friend who was a channel the next day, and she said, well, obviously somebody wants to channel through you.
So was channeling a thing that a lot of people did at the time?
Yeah, at the time it was very common for people to channel their higher selves. Well, mine was Rasputin, the mad monk of Moscow.
Not your higher self.
That's not what I thought was my higher self.
You channeled for a few years,
Yeah.
and then how did Access come out of the channeling?
Because I was channeling, I had a guy call me from New York and said, can you come to New York and do some channeling? I said, okay, fine. And I went there, and the guy says, I want you to do a channel session for my massage therapist. So I did it, and they started talking. He started talking about the elements of the bars. And that was the beginning of the bars.
That's
And
right.
so I went out to lunch afterwards, and I was sitting there, and I had, I'm going, okay, cool. Well, that was interesting. I go, shit, that hurt. What's the problem? It's a class, you dummy. Okay, I'll do it as soon as I get home. Boom. This is the class, you dummy. Okay, I'll do it. I swear to God, I'll do it as soon as I get home. So I went home. I called 4 friends. I'm doing a class. On what? Energy work? Okay, good. And how long is it? 3 nights? Okay. And what do you call it? I don't know. And they came and they did the class. And afterwards I said, so what'd you get out of this? Well, it seems to access this. 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 But thanks. I got the name. Access.
And it was called Access Energy Transformation from the beginning.
Yeah.
So when did it turn into Access Consciousness?
When he went away. When the channel quit helping me, and I had to do it all on my own. I realized, okay, so what's my job here? Get the consciousness on the planet activated. Oh, do I have to? Because I whined well in those days. And I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to be able to close my eyes, channel, and get paid for it. Because that was so much easier. But I had to get to work, and I had to do it, and I did. And I'm still doing it after all these years.
What would you say was, like, if you look back, is there any period that seemed happier or happiest?
No.
Is it now?
Now it's happy, yes. Now I'm happy. Now I actually have. My house is filled with things that I love. My life is filled with people that I love. My life works. It's great. I'm not married, which is really nice. Marriage is the 24/7 job you take on besides your other job. And it's like, and everything seems to work for me in magical ways.
So when you look into the future, what would you say you're more enthused about?
Well, enthused with the amount of consciousness I can see happening on the planet, because it is, and with this new app that we're putting out, I see that people will be able to come on a small amount of money per month and join in the search for consciousness and the expansion of consciousness, which has not been available here on planet Earth. We're offering all the years that we've been doing, 35 years of consciousness is available
on this app.
And it's like, and I decided that was the only way I could get enough consciousness here fast enough. So I'm doing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing.
You surprised me. I didn't realize you knew so much about me. You just listen when I tell stories. Try not to tell everything at once. It's horrifying. Thank you.
It's not everything. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Feeding the Wolf of Possibilities. If you would like to find out more about Access Consciousness, you can go to accessconsciousness.com. And if you would like to find out more about the app that Gary mentioned in this episode, you can go to access.me. And finally, if you would like to listen to more episodes of this podcast, go to katarinavalentin.com/wolf. What else is possible that we cannot even imagine?